You'd think a bigger prize is always a better motivator, right? I mean, it just makes sense. Offer someone more, they'll work harder. But what if I told you the science behind it is way more complicated than that? Today on The Explainer, we're going to dig into the really surprising psychology of rewards.
All right, let's jump right in. In the world of science, the size of a reward has a fancy name, reinforcement magnitude. But really, it's just about how big the prize is. And for a long time, researchers have been playing with this one thing to see what happens. Does making a reward bigger or smaller actually change how we act? Our gut tells us, yeah, of course. Bigger reward equals more motivation. But the real question is our gut feeling right on this one?
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to go back a bit. Way back to 1962, actually. Our story starts with this really foundational experiment, a super clever setup, and, believe it or not, some very hungry lab rats. And it's these rats that gave us our very first clues.
So the researchers set up this little two-part challenge. Here's how it worked. First, a rat had to press one of 5 different keys. Once it did that, it could then run across the chamber and press a single lever. And that's what gave it a little milk reward. But the really important part here is that very first step, that choice. Which one of those 5 keys is it going to press? And this is where things get really interesting. You can see it right here in the chart. When the rats were just kind of chilling, well-fed, what scientists call satiated, their behavior was totally random. They'd hit any of the 5 keys, no real pattern. But when they were hungry, when they were really motivated, they became laser-focused. They'd zero in on just 1 or 2 keys that they liked. And this gave us our first big takeaway. The more motivated you are, the more focused and less random your behavior becomes.
Okay, so let's hit the fast-forward button. We're jumping from 1962 all the way to 2005. And now we're swapping out the rats for people. This is where everything we thought we knew about reward size gets turned on its head.
So in this study, researchers were looking at that same thing, how the size of a reward affects what people do. But this time, they compared a tiny social reward, just 3 seconds of attention, to a much bigger one, 120 seconds of attention. I mean, think about that. That's a 40 times bigger reward. You'd absolutely expect that massive reward to have a huge impact, wouldn't you?
And here's the plot twist. The study found that for most people, the size of the reward just didn't matter. That giant 120-second reward was no more effective than the teeny tiny 3-second one. I mean, what? It was a total head-scratcher for everyone involved.
Yeah, this result just didn't make any sense. If a massive reward doesn't get you to do more than a tiny one, then what on earth is going on? What are we missing here? It basically created this massive puzzle that scientists had to figure out.
Well, the answer, or at least the start of one, came a few years later in a 2008 study. And they did something really clever. They added 2 new things to the mix, 2 simple but game-changing variables: choice and effort. First up, choice. They just asked people straight up, which reward do you want? And look at this chart. The answer could not have been clearer. A massive 93% of people went for the big 120-second reward. So this proved that the bigger reward was definitely more desirable. People wanted it more. Okay, so the value wasn't the problem, which honestly just made the puzzle even weirder.
All right, so next they brought in the idea of effort. They used a technique with a kind of complicated name, a progressive ratio schedule. But don't worry about the name. All it means is that to get the next reward, you have to work a little bit harder than you did to get the last one.
So picture it like this. You have to press a button. The first time you press it once, you get your reward. Super easy, right? But for the next one, maybe you have to press it 5 times, then 10 times, then 20. The work keeps getting harder and harder, and that forces you to ask yourself a question. Is this reward actually worth all this extra effort?
And this was the breakthrough. When the work was easy, it was just like the 2005 study. Reward size didn't really matter. But as the task got more difficult, suddenly that larger reward became a huge motivator. People were willing to put in way more work for that bigger prize. It's like the power of the bigger reward was there all along, but it was locked away. And the key to unlocking it was making the task a real challenge.
So, okay, now we have all the pieces of the puzzle on the table. Let's put them all together and finally solve this mystery of the magnitude effect. This table just lays it all out so perfectly. You look at that top line, that's the 2005 study. The task was low effort, there was no choice involved, and the result, the bigger reward, didn't really do anything special. Now look at the bottom line.
The 2008 study. The task was high effort. People got to choose, and bam, the bigger reward was suddenly way more effective. It was never just about the reward itself. It was the context around it that changed everything.
So what does this all mean for you? What's the big takeaway? Well, it means if you're trying to motivate yourself, or maybe your team, just dangling a bigger prize in front of them might not be enough. The real power of that big reward only gets unlocked when two things happen. First, people have to actually choose it. They have to want it. And second, it has to be tied to overcoming a real, sustained challenge. Basically, the reward has to feel like it was truly earned.
And that leaves us with a much smarter, more nuanced way of thinking about motivation, doesn't it? A bigger reward isn't just automatically better. Its true value is kind of hidden, just waiting to be unlocked by choice and by effort. And that really makes you wonder what truly drives us to push ourselves, to work harder, and to achieve those big goals.